All right, so yesterday my boyfriend asked me a really interesting question. He was like, if you could go back in time with a time machine, what date would you put in? And I was like, what do you mean? Like, you mean in my own life or in like all of history? Like, what is this question about? And then he clarified, and it turned out to be about his own life. And he shared his example, saying that he would want to go back to when he was about 18, when he was about to choose what he would study. And he said he wished he had more time to decide. And I think most of us would probably answer something similar. So when I thought about my answer, I also went back to 18, and my thing was like, not so much that I made the wrong decisions, I don't think so, but I was like, if I could, all I would want to do is go to myself and sort of shake myself up and somehow infuse some confidence into myself. So that kind of spiraled me into thinking about what it was that had me lacking all that confidence. And then, very interestingly, yesterday I had an encounter with a lady who is 80 years old, and I generally have a thing for grannies. Like, I love grandma energy, so I felt very drawn to her. I was like, wow, look, this wonderful grandma. Like, she had really nice makeup on, and she had the best posture I've seen in a long time. And like, she was just so full of vitality and like felt like good energy. So I started talking to her, and after a little while she says to me, I'm a clairvoyant. And there was some kind of like random patchy things that she would kind of throw into the conversation, and slowly I started feeling a little bit weird. Like, in my gut I started feeling like, okay, like this is so weird. Like, at the same time I feel really like drawn to it, but then I also feel like something's off in here. And she started telling me she's a clairvoyant, and I was like, oh, you know, like I was like, okay, great, let's be friends, you know, because I also started kind of training with the Silva method. One of the things that we do is that we train psychic abilities, and I am generally, like, I'm not super attracted to it, but I am curious about it, let's say it that way. So she starts kind of scanning me, and she starts telling me some things. And one of the things that she said was like, oh, you don't know what you're doing, and like you need to choose what you're going to be doing in life, like, quickly. And the way that she was saying these things was just not sitting very well with me. And I noticed in my own energy field that I was getting very intimidated, and it just felt like a kind of like authority energy, where I felt that no matter what I said, she would just dismiss it, you know, like reject, refuse, like, no, this isn't good enough, like, no, I don't like that. And then she starts, because I did train in Reiki, and then she started saying like, no, Reiki's not for you. And a couple more things followed, and I was like, why am I standing here, you know? I started really kind of like questioning myself, like why I'm listening to her, and at the same time, like, why am I feeling so intimidated by the situation? So and then the funny thing, like, I noticed in myself is that sometimes when these situations happen, and they happen ever so often, I don't have like real-time processing power. Like, I will kind of only realize what was going on after it's done, and I would just feel like, wait, what just happened? So then I went home, and I felt very shaken by it. Like, I felt like she kind of went under my skin, and like she made me feel really confused. And I was like, why am I giving my power away to this person? Like, this is crazy. So it took me a little while. It took me probably like a good day to kind of come to the realization. But it was really great that it happened, because it was kind of like a catalyst for me to think about authority, because I've been having major issues with authority like all my life. But then that question that my boyfriend asked me about like what I would kind of want to change, technically that's the question that is implied in that question. I realized like what I would really want to change is that when I was 18, especially like 18, 20, early 20s, oh my God, the anger that I feel thinking about it now, and still like I had to do so much inner work to kind of clear all of that out and really transmute the relationship that I had to older people. Okay, so I loved authority so much that I married one. So when I was 18, 19, I met my first ex-husband. I don't even know how to say it, but the thing that kind of attracted me about him was the fact that he was authority. Like, he was authority in art, and at the time, and even when I was at university, when I was studying art, throughout high school, throughout university, I went to an art high school too, and it was the same thing. Like, I was like, oh, the older people, they know, and I don't know because I'm young. They know, they're old, I'm young, I don't know. Like, that was the equation that I had in my mind. And I just somehow, I don't know how this got into my system, but there was almost this command that said, don't question the older, you know? Don't question authority. Like, they know so much more. They've been around for so much longer. They know everything. And sadly, that went on for way too long, because I feel that, goodness, if I had not had that command in my head, I would have been where I am now, like at fucking 23. And I'm fine, I'm accepting of where I am, I'm accepting of divine plan and divine timing. And that's what also pissed me off about this lady. Is like, she had this kind of bitterness about it, and she was like, you don't have any time anymore, like, why are you waiting? Why are you wasting time in a way? And I was like, lady, like, you don't know what I had to deal with in life, you know, like, you don't know the struggles I've had to overcome. Like, and just that energy of being kind of aggressive. And I think like that is the thing. Like, if I could give advice to anyone, you know, how to discern, because obviously you do want to take in some wisdom and some advice, right? But then the question is like, if you're kind of open to everything, right? Then it's like, well, then everything fucking comes in and confuses you. So I found a system for myself that I use nowadays, and I am no longer afraid to get into fist fights with older people when I feel like they're really violating boundaries. And I had another episode like that about over a year ago, where I really got to kind of see my relationship with authority and how I can get really manipulated with it, with my Reiki teacher. So he was really violating, and he's of the old generation. Dear Lord, these people, you see, like, some of these older people get it. Some of these older people understand that times are changing. Times are really changing big time. So whatever they thought was good wisdom just no longer applies. And like, their best bet now is to assist and support the youth. And I get so, oh God, like, I get really like annoyed and just like, I want to defend the young in a way, you know, like whenever I hear anyone saying anything bad about the young, I'm like, people, these people are our future, like, don't, you know, because I feel like, you know, like, especially now, like, the young generation is being criticized like crazy when they're actually like the fucking nicest people that have ever walked on planet Earth. Like, they're so open-minded and so, you know, like, gentle and more emotional and more aware of everything and more caring than ever. I'm like, what is wrong about that? Like, yes, okay, they might be confused about certain things, but that's just a byproduct of the spiritual evolution that we're going through. So I have major issues with these older people who are bitter because life didn't give them what they wanted. Like in the example of this woman, I see that she is bitter because she has based her identity and self-worth on her serving other people. And when that service is not being appreciated, then she feels bitter about how she was treated by other people. And then there's the other kind, which is like upholding authority, which drives me fucking mental, because authority is just there to serve the collective. Authority is there to be there while it's useful. When it is no longer useful, it should just go away and be replaced by whatever else is most useful. And when people become guardians of authority, of the authority, they put all their ego into it, and so many of these leaders and people who are in positions of authority, they get old and all they want is just the praise and the ego feeding of being in the position of authority, and they just won't relinquish that. So as soon as they see another young person coming into the field, they will just criticize them and like pinpoint everywhere where they're wrong, instead of like assisting them and helping them. And I feel like that is something that kind of low-key happened with this lady yesterday, and I was like, wow, like this is showing me something that I have been seeing in like small little glimpses here and there. And I have slowly over the last couple years been really noticing like, whoa, I'm giving my power away in these situations. Like, why am I just automatically intimidated just because of the way they speak or because of the things that they say? I immediately start doubting everything I'm doing or thinking or whatnot. And yesterday I had a beautiful, beautiful moment where I really went deep into myself. I went into meditation, and I just like, it was almost like a game, you know, like a video game where I was just like slashing, like, no, 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 no. You know, like, you don't get to just take away my power, you know, like, you don't get to just confuse me. And the other thing that I started using for myself big time is only listen to the people who are doing what you want to be doing. Like, why are you taking advice from an 80-year-old lady who is not doing, you know, online personal empire or whatever it is that you want to be doing, right? Like, if they're not doing the exact same thing that you want to be doing and they're not showing you how to get there, they're not the people to listen to. And I think that is also why recently there's a shift, collective shift, kind of, people are getting disenchanted with experts and authorities because they feel like they're so far removed from them, right? And now we're kind of getting into a new way of being where we really kind of want to learn from people who are only like one level, one layer removed from us. So we feel close to them. We're like, okay, you actually have my best interests in mind and you want to help me get to where you are, and then we can move the next step, right? And it's not like, you know, this authority is so far removed from where I am now. Like, I kind of have doubts that they really want to help me, you know, like, because they've already forgotten what it feels like to be where I am. So naturally, I can be best served by someone who still remembers where I am now and like all of my context and pains and sufferings of, you know, like trying to move ahead. So anyways, that was just very interesting. And I wanted to share that because I'm like, goodness, I just really wish that I had gotten to that sooner. I wish that I had kind of woken up to the fact that just because someone's older does not mean that they're automatically correct. Like, I don't know why, when I was young, I just did not understand that, and I was just constantly intimidated by authority, and I didn't really dare question them. Or if I did privately in my own head question them, I would have never, ever, ever dared to do it publicly. And the other thing that I've kind of connected to this subject in a way is ideas. So very often when we have ideas that actually come from ether, from, you know, the, well, how do you explain that? Like, out there, the universe, the ether, you know, like just the same way that we have the internet where data is kind of stored in a cloud. There is a cloud where ideas come from that is collective. It's like all knowledge and all ideas are just out there, and when we are in the creative process, we're pulling from that place. When we're actually like in our right hemisphere and we're activating that connection to the ether, we're pulling directly from there. And those kinds of ideas are very different from the kinds of ideas where you are using your rational mind, your logical left brain, and you are just analyzing whatever, you know, things already presently exist in this reality, and then you reassemble them, you make some tweaks, and you present it as a new idea. It might look like a new idea, it technically is, but it's definitely not as hot and spicy as ideas that are pulled directly from the ether. So when I was young, when I was in my 20s, this is exactly what I would do. I would use my left brain and I would try to come up with ideas. And if I now look back at all of my output during my 20s, I swear to God, I've only had 2 real ideas that have come from a place. Sorry, I will be back. So, back to the ideas. I had only 2 ideas during that time that came from source, that came from me just being in joy. And at that time, the trend, I would say, was conceptual art. You know, like you had to have a thinking process and then you would come up with an idea, and like I would just kind of get stuck in that process of thinking and the idea would never come because I was not emotionally connected to it. And that's why I became creatively blocked actually in my 20s, because I just could not navigate that process. And at the same time, I was too embarrassed to kind of even talk to anyone about it, because I was like, oh, if I tell anyone about this, then they're just gonna say like, oh, you're not a real artist. Like you clearly don't know what you're doing. And I think that's just so horribly, horribly sad, because I don't know, like I was just giving my power away. See, this is what I mean. It's like I would just like look out to the outside world and it's like, how can I be successful? You know, how can I crack this game? You know, how can I actually do it in a way that, you know, I do it well and not fail, basically. I think I was just like mostly kind of concerned with like not failing, which just blows my mind now. But anyways, and the last couple of years, really, like it's just been a process of caring less and less and less and less. And then, you know, like doing this YouTube channel has just been extremely healing for me, because I feel like it's the first time ever that I have the space to just go and talk about things that I care about, you know, that are not like 5 steps to enlightenment. You know, like I just want to talk about my personal experience in the way that I know best how to do, and just call it a day. And if it is useful to someone, great. If it's not, then sorry. But like I still, and that's the other thing, having a voice. I feel like only after I started doing this is that I started feeling like, ooh, I actually have a voice. Like I get it now. I get it now. Like people have a platform and they have a voice and they do something with it and they put out something. And for some reason, all of my 20s, I was stuck in a kind of feeling like I have nothing to say, I have nothing to contribute, because the authority has already decided, you know, like everything that is somehow useful and smart and good is already out there, and like all of my small little attempts are too small to even put out, basically. And now I'm kind of realizing like, no. Like all of us. And that brings me to the thing that changed it. The thing that changed it is really when I started journaling every day in the morning, 3 A4 pages. And that is where I got to know myself, and that is where I got to appreciate myself, and that is where I got to see like, hey girlfriend, like you actually do have ideas. Like some of the things that you think are cool, they're fresh, they're new, they're interesting, you know, like just nurture that, you know, like small little steps of nurturing whatever is there already. And becoming interested in yourself is like everything, is everything, you know, like starting to value yourself. And like if I hadn't gone through that process yesterday when this lady was saying those things, I would have just been like, oh, okay, she's right, oh my god, you know, like I don't know anything. But now I'm like, fuck her, you know. So yeah, that is kind of like the 3-step process, you know. It's like notice and then really get to know yourself. Like I feel getting to know yourself, getting to prioritize yourself, getting to feel that you matter, and if you have no one in your reality that is there mothering and nurturing you, you can be that person to yourself, to mother and nurture yourself, to really get yourself to the point where you're like, you feel that your opinion about yourself and what you think is cool matters more than what other people think. And recently, I don't know, I guess we've all seen the movie Elvis, because apparently there's nothing more interesting to make on planet Earth than to go back in time and, you know, like revisit everything that's already been done. So anyways, but the story of Elvis like really shows us something, which is that you can be insanely talented. You can be pulling directly from the ether, directly from source, and the entire planet can tell you that you're insane and that what you're doing is shit. And it really takes the person who has that connection to the ether to claim it and to understand, like, no, I'm special, I'm gifted, like I am actually pulling directly from source, and the people are sheep, you know. They don't know, like the only trust the people who are doing exactly what you want to be doing, their opinion. Everyone else is just bitter and frustrated because they're not following their dreams and they're telling you that you're wrong. Mic drop. All right, thank you for watching. Thank you for watching, and I will see you again next week. All right, bye.